Hello viewers. Welcome to my channel Storyweavers 108. Everyone enjoy the story nicely. Let's get started. The door slammed shut behind me, the sound echoing down the empty hallway. I stood there with my heart pounding, trying to make sense of what had just happened. The argument had erupted so quickly, and now I found myself standing on the threshold of the house I had shared with my husband for many years. Please, let's talk about this, I pleaded, my voice trembling as I turned to him, tears welling up in my eyes. He looked at me with a mixture of anger and frustration, clenching his jaw. I said what needed to be said, we can't go on like this. I took a step closer, extending a trembling hand, but to expel me? Isn't this too extreme? He shook his head, his gaze unwavering. I need time to think, and so do you. Maybe being apart for a while will help us figure things out. Tears streamed down my cheeks, and I wiped them away with the back of my hand. I don't want to break up, I want us to get through this together. His expression softened for a moment, doubt flickering in his eyes. We've been trying to work this out for several months. Maybe a break is what we both need. I felt like my heart was breaking all over again. You don't even want to give us a chance? He sighed, running a hand through his hair. I don't know what else to do. All right, this constant fighting, the tension between us, it's suffocating. I took a deep breath, my chest tight, with a mix of emotions. I know it hasn't been easy, but kicking me out of here won't solve anything. If anything, it will only make things worse. He looked puzzled, torn between anger and his own pain. I need time to think, to clear my mind. I reached out and touched his shoulder gently, and what about us, and the promises we made? You're just giving up on all of that. He pulled away slightly, avoiding my gaze. I'm not giving up, but I need space to figure out what I want, my voice broke, desperation likely taking hold of me. And if you decide you don't need me anymore? What then? He looked at me, and his gaze softened with a touch of regret. I don't know, he said, I really don't know. I felt a lump in my throat. The pain of uncertainty was eating away at me. If you need time, that's okay. But please, don't shut me out completely. Let's keep talking, let's keep trying. He sighed, and finally met my gaze. I promise we'll talk, but right now, I need you to stay somewhere else. With a heavy heart, I walked away from him, my steps heavy as I made my way down the path. I couldn't believe this was really happening, that the man I loved and shared my life with was now asking me to leave. But the journey from my house was a blur, a whirlwind of emotions in my mind. I found myself parked in front of a dimly lit bar, its neon signs flickering in the night. It was a place I had never been before, but tonight it seemed to be the only refuge. I pushed open the heavy wooden door and entered the dimly lit room. The soft murmur of conversations and the quiet background music provided a comforting backdrop to my chaotic thoughts. The bar was dotted with small groups of people, their laughter and chatter contrasting sharply with the heaviness in my heart. I found an empty stool at the bar and sat down, resting my elbows on the counter. The bartender, a friendly-looking woman, approached me. What can I get you? She asked with a warm smile. I hesitated for a moment, my mind disconnected from the usual options. Just a glass of red wine, please, I nodded, and she soon placed a glass of dark red liquid in front of me. I lifted it and took a sip, the taste was familiar and comforting. Are you okay? What's going on? A voice to my right asked, pulling me out of my thoughts. I turned and saw a man sitting next to me. There was curiosity and concern in his brown eyes. I forced a weak smile to appear calm. Yes, just one of those tough days, you know? He nodded, understanding. I definitely know that feeling. By the way, I'm Isaac, he finally introduced himself, extending his hand. I shook his hand, and the warmth of his touch surprised me. I'm Sarah, it's a pleasure to meet you, I said with a genuine smile that as the night wore on, Zach and I found ourselves engrossed in a conversation that flowed effortlessly. We talked about everything, our work, our hobbies, our dreams. He had a way of making me laugh, of distracting me from the whirlwind that had engulfed me earlier. You know, sometimes, a change of scenery can work wonders, he commented with a thoughtful look, taking a sip of his drink. I felt an agreement. Yes, it's strange how a single decision can change the course of events, he looked at me intensely, as if he sensed there was more behind it. Do you want to talk about it? I hesitated for a moment, torn between opening up and keeping my emotions in check. But there was something about Zach's presence that made me feel safe, as if I could let my guard down a bit. About this, my marriage, I confessed, my voice barely above a whisper. We've had issues, and tonight, my husband's patience ran out. Zach listened attentively, his expression understanding. I'm sorry to hear that, relationships can be tough. Tears welled up in my eyes, and I quickly wiped them away. Yes, they can be. I just never thought it would come to this. He reached out and placed a comforting hand on mine. Sometimes, taking a step back can give you perspective. It doesn't mean giving up, just reevaluating the situation. His words resonated with me, and I felt a mix of gratitude and relief that I had someone to talk to, someone who understood. As the night fell, we continued to talk, our conversation ebbing and flowing like the tides. The heaviness in my heart became a little lighter, the pain dulled a bit. Zach had provided me with much-needed escapism, a temporary relief from the chaos that had enveloped my world. When the bar began to empty, Zach looked at me with a gentle smile. I'm really glad I met you tonight, Sarah. I returned the smile. The corners of my lips lifted more sincerely than they had in a long time. Me too, Zach, we exchanged phone numbers, promising to stay in touch, and after bidding each other farewell one last time, I left the bar into the cool night air. I didn't know what to do next. But for the first time in a long time, I felt a glimmer of hope, a reminder that life can surprise us, lead us to unexpected connections and moments of comfort. The night had been a whirlwind of emotions, and when the early morning light filtered through the curtains of the motel room, I woke up. The events of the previous day played in my head like a broken record, each moment replayed in painful detail. I sat up in bed, rubbing my eyes, and trying to shake off the remnants of sleep. The room felt strange, sterile, in stark contrast to the warmth and familiarity of the house I had been expelled from. I sighed deeply, my heart was heavy with uncertainty, but I couldn't let our marriage crumble without a fight. I had to meet with my husband, lay it all out on the table, and try to salvage what remained. I got up, quickly got dressed, and changed into clean clothes. My hands trembled slightly as I grabbed the car keys and headed for the exit. The drive back to our house was making me nervous. 1,000 scenarios of how the conversation could have gone were running through my head. When I arrived, I parked the car and took a deep breath, gathering my thoughts and summoning the courage to face it head-on. The front door was unlocked, and I pushed it open gently. The house was quiet, too quiet, and a knot formed in my stomach as I walked down the hallway, to our bedroom. The door was ajar, and I pushed it open gently. The sight that greeted me was like a punch to the gut. There, my husband lay on the bed, but he wasn't alone. Entangled in each other's arms, caught in a web of betrayal, was my husband and another woman. My breath caught in my throat, and I recoiled, my vision blurred by tears. I couldn't believe what I was seeing. I couldn't fathom how it could have progressed so quickly, so callously. The pain was overwhelming, like a giant wave crashing over me. Sarah, his voice was filled with surprise and guilt as he pulled away from the woman, her face paling. She couldn't find the right words, the resentment was too sharp, too deep to put into words. I turned and rushed out of the room, my heart pounding in my chest. I could hear him calling my name, but I couldn't force myself to look back. I needed to escape, to find solace in the solitude of my own thoughts. I stumbled out of the house, my tears blurred, the world around me a blur. I didn't have a specific destination, but my feet led me to the nearest park. I collapsed on a bench, the weight of betrayal crushing me. How could it have progressed so quickly? Our years together meant nothing to him. As the hours passed, I allowed myself to feel the pain, to mourn the loss of what we had. It was a process I couldn't rush, a wound that needed time to heal. Finally, I picked up my phone and dialed the number of a newfound acquaintance, Zach. He answered after the second ring, and there was clear concern in his voice. "Hello, Sarah, is everything okay?" As I spoke, I tried to hold back my tears. "No, it's not okay. Can we meet?" "Of course, where are you?" We agreed to meet at a nearby cafe, and when I sat across from Zach, I felt comfortable in his company. He listened without judgment as I recounted the events of the morning, about the pain and desolation that had become my reality. "I'm so sorry, Sarah," he said sincerely, reaching out his hand towards mine. "I just can't understand how it could have progressed so quickly." I whispered, my voice breaking. Zach looked at me sympathetically. People deal with things in different ways. Wiping away a tear, I just thought he would fight for us, for our marriage. Zach's gaze was firm, his expression thoughtful. Sometimes, the people we believe will always be by our side disappoint us, but that doesn't mean there isn't someone else who will support you, who will fight for you. When I looked into Zach's eyes, I saw a glimmer of hope, a reminder that even in the darkest moments, there can be a ray of light. He was an incredible source of support, a friend who came into my life when I needed it most. Throughout the day, Zach and I talked, sharing stories and experiences that had shaped us. The pain of my husband's betrayal was still fresh, but being with Zach helped lighten that burden, at least for a while. In the weeks that followed, I had to accept and work through the pain my husband had left behind, and as I did so, Zach remained by my side and helped me every step of the way. After a while, the pain of my husband's betrayal began to fade, slowly replaced by a mix of sadness, anger, and a longing for what once was all this time. Zach had been a constant source of support, offering a listening ear and a shoulder to lean on. One night, as we sat on his porch, sipping hot tea from cups, Zach looked at me thoughtfully. "You know, Sarah, I've been thinking whether you need a change of scenery, or just a break from all this. You can stay here for a while." He looked surprised by his offer. "You mean, in your house?" He nodded. "Yes, I have a spare room. Maybe a change of scenery would do you good, help you distract from the memories for a while." I hesitated, not knowing what to say. The offer was kind, and I really liked the idea of a change of scenery, but I also felt a pang of guilt, of anxiety, about intruding into Zach's life. "Are you sure?" I finally asked. "I mean, I don't want to be a bother." Zach smiled gently. "You wouldn't be a bother at all, Sarah. This is just an offer with no strings attached. Besides, I think it would be good for both of us. I could use some company here too." His words were reassuring, and I found myself seriously considering the idea. "I appreciate it, Zach, It's a generous offer. I'll think about it, I said, and his eyes were sincere. And if you decide you want it, the door is open. In the following days, I weighed the pros and cons of Zach's offer. The idea of a change of scenery became increasingly appealing, and I appreciated that there was someone nearby who cared about me. In the end, I decided and called him. Hey, Zach, I've been thinking about your offer, and I think I'd like to accept it. There was genuine satisfaction in his voice. I'm glad to hear that, Sarah. When you're ready, just let me know, and I'll help you get settled. A week later, I stood at the front door of Zach's house with a suitcase in hand. He greeted me with a warm smile and helped me carry my things inside. Make yourself at home, he said, guiding me to the guest room. Feel free to use the kitchen, the living room, whatever you need. As the days went by, I grew accustomed to the routine in Zach's house. We spent evenings cooking together, sharing stories, and watching movies. He was a true friend, and his presence was a balm for my wounded heart. One evening, as we sat on the couch, our conversation took a more serious turn. You know, Sarah, I don't want to cross any lines, but I really enjoy having you here. You're an amazing person, and I feel a strong connection with you. He looked at me, and my heart began to beat faster. Zach, I said, my voice barely above a whisper. I'm not sure where this will lead us, but I want to try it too. He smiled, and a mix of relief and happiness reflected on his face. Let's take it step by step, Sarah. I'll do my best to make you happy. Zach and I navigated the complexities of our developing relationship. Our bond deepened, and I found solace in his arms, a refuge from the pain of the past. Although our journey was far from simple, it was a reminder that sometimes new beginnings can arise from the most unexpected circumstances, bringing healing and a renewed sense of hope. As my relationship with Zach continued to evolve, I was overwhelmed by a whirlwind of emotions. Our connection grew quickly, providing a sense of comfort and companionship I hadn't realized I was missing. One afternoon, as I was leaving a local store, I felt a hand grab my shoulder with such force that it left me breathless. It was him. What do you think you're doing? I demanded, trying to break free from his grip. He ignored my question, his eyes burning with anger. Do you think you can hide from me? You're coming back home with me right now. I struggled against his iron grip, panic coursing through my veins. Let me go, you have no right to do this. He pulled me closer to him, his voice turning into a shout. You're my wife, you belong to me. I felt a mixture of fear and helplessness as he dragged me towards our old house. I had to think fast, find a way out of this situation. My heart started to race as I noticed a bottle of alcohol on the nearby table. I grabbed it and took a sip. The burning smell of alcohol numbed my fear. My husband's eyes widened in shock as he staggered slightly. What the hell are you doing? Leave me alone, I slurred, my words muffled by the alcohol. Just leave me alone. He reached out to grab me again, his hand slapping my cheek with a searing blow. The surprise of the blow sent me stumbling back, pain spreading where his hand had struck me. Before I could react further, a voice boomed from behind him. Back off, Zach intervened, a mix of anger and concern on his face as he stood between my husband and me. My husband's eyes narrowed, his features contorted with rage. Get away from her, she. My husband moved towards Zach, but the latter cut him off. Don't touch her, his voice was firm. And get out of here, or I'll call the police. My husband finally backed off, his words dripping with venom. I wouldn't see him again, he wouldn't have power over me, I thought as Zach enveloped me in a protective embrace. She's my wife. Zach's voice was resolute as he stood between us, his unwavering gaze. She's not under your control, let her go. A tense silence hung in the air as my husband, is it, and Zach locked eyes. The tension between them crackled, and then, with a quick and unexpected movement, my husband struck. The force of the blow sent Zach stumbling. I watched in shock as a fight broke out between the two men. Their anger and frustration fueled the violence. I tried to intervene to stop the chaos, but I got caught in the crossfire. After that, everything was a blur. The sounds of shouting and struggling seemed distant as pain and darkness overwhelmed me. When I woke up, the world was shrouded in a haze of lights and screeching cars. I groaned, trying to sit up. My head throbbed, and my body ached. Easy, a familiar voice said gently. I turned my head and saw Zach sitting by my bedside, a mix of relief and concern on his face. Zach, I whispered hoarsely. He reached out and gently took my hand. You're in the hospital. You've been attacked. Memories of the confrontation with my husband, of the violence that erupted, came rushing back to me. I trembled, touching my cheek and feeling the pain where my husband had struck me. I'm so sorry, Sarah, Zach said, and his voice was filled with remorse. I shouldn't have let that happen. I weakly shook my head. It's not your fault, I told him. He looked at me seriously. I love you, Sarah. I don't want to see you hurt. I stared at him, and the events of the past weeks and months played out before my eyes. Despite the chaos, despite the pain, there was something undeniably strong between us, a bond that had grown from adversity. Zach, I said softly. Thank you for being there for me. He smiled gently. Sarah, I know it might not be the best timing, but I've been thinking a lot about us. Life is short, and I don't want to waste any more time. Will you marry me? I looked into his eyes, and my heart began to beat faster. The journey we had embarked on was far from easy, marked by trials and unexpected turns, but in that moment, I saw a future filled with hope and love, an opportunity to build something new from the ashes of the past. Yes, my voice was filled with confidence. Yes. A genuine smile spread across his face, and he leaned in to kiss me gently. When he did, I felt a sense of finality, a turning point in my journey. The pain and darkness of the past were still with me, but with Zach by my side, I knew I could face whatever challenges lay ahead. The days following my hospital stay were filled with a whirlwind of emotions and decisions. I knew it was time to take the step and end my marriage with my ex-husband. The divorce process was painful but necessary, a way to finally break free from a relationship that had become toxic and irreparable. Thanks to Zach's unwavering support, I faced legal battles and emotional turmoil that accompanied the divorce. He was by my side the whole time, offering me a shoulder to lean on and a hand to hold when things got tough. Our bond grew stronger with each challenge we faced together. When the divorce was finalized, I felt a sense of liberation. It was as if a weight had been lifted off me, allowing me to finally breathe again, and despite all of this, Zach's love and unwavering support remained a guiding star. A year later, when the divorce was over and a new chapter in my life began, Zach and I found ourselves under a clear blue sky, surrounded by friends and family. The sun shone down on us as we exchanged vows, promising to love and care for each other in sickness and in health, in wealth and in poverty. Our wedding day was a symbol of new beginnings, a celebration of love that was reborn from the ashes of broken hearts from the past. That night, as we danced under the stars, I felt a deep sense of gratitude for the journey that had brought me to that moment. In the weeks following, life returned to its usual rhythm. Zach and I built a home together, creating a life based on mutual respect, deep friendship, and unwavering love. Each day was a reminder that the journey we had embarked on was worth it at every turn. Then, one day, while we were together in our kitchen, I felt a strange sensation wash over me. I looked down at my stomach, and a spark of awareness ignited within me. I looked into Zach's eyes, and my heart pounded. "I think I might be pregnant," I said with a mixture of excitement and nervousness in my voice. Zach's eyes widened in surprise, and a mix of joy and surprise reflected on his face. "Are you serious?" I nodded, and a smile spread across my face. "Yes, I took the test this morning." He enveloped me in a tight hug, his happiness palpable. "It's incredible, Sarah. We're going to be parents." Months passed, and we prepared for the arrival of our child with a sense of anticipation and wonder. The baby's room was decorated, baby clothes were washed and folded. Our hearts brimmed with hope for the future. And now, that moment had arrived. With Zach by my side, I gave birth to our baby, a tiny and precious miracle that was the embodiment of our love. We named him Ted. When I held Ted in my arms, tears of joy streamed down my cheeks. It was a moment of overwhelming gratitude, a reminder that even in the midst of life's difficulties and uncertainties, there is always room for new beginnings and the promise of a brighter tomorrow. And so, as our family grew, Zach and I embarked on a journey filled with laughter, love, and endless possibilities. The pain of the past became a distant memory, replaced by the beauty of the present and hope for the future that lay ahead. Thanks to Zach's unwavering support and the love we shared, I knew that no matter what happened along the way, we could face it together as a family. As we conclude our journey into the world of human relationships, please remember to subscribe, like, and share our content. Thank you for your support, and we look forward to seeing you in the next story.